Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Kat from Elevate, and welcome to my channel where we talk about recovering from toxic relationships and regaining self love and self esteem. Today, we'll be discussing how denial is very powerful and also enabling toxic people. But before we get into the topic, please subscribe to my channel for more videos on how to heal from. So, recently I had an interaction with someone, and it was so obvious how powerful denial can be. So, I wanted to talk about that today. I was looking online and I found this Russian proverb, and the saying goes like this: People would rather be kissed by a lie than be hit with the truth. This is such an amazing saying to explain how many people prefer to live in denial instead of facing reality. For instance, narcissists and other toxic people see reality from a distorted lens. They use denial of true, actual reality as a way to prevent themselves from facing the truths of what they've done. They are unable to face shame, so instead they invent a false reality that suits their viewpoint. Sam Vaknin talks about this in one of his videos. He says, the inner world of these people is so chaotic, like volcanic earthquakes. And then they externalize that inner world and perceive that as reality, despite the fact that it's not a true reality. So, what they are imagining in their mind, which is chaotic and, not necessarily real, they externalize and they believe that that's the external world. So, this can be contradictory behavior, confusing, crazy making for other people who are involved with the toxic person because it doesn't make any sense. You'll wonder why this person perceives a reality that doesn't actually exist, and they really believe it. So it's like you may ask questions, but basically it's because their inner world has now replaced the actual reality of a situation. I experienced this firsthand a few months ago, where someone like this has had false memories of conversations they thought they had with me. I think he actually believes that we had these conversations. And at that point, obviously, I realized something was very wrong. I mean, I already knew that this person was diagnosed bipolar and was unmedicated. But at that point, it was like, wow, this person has actually false memories of believing that they said things to me that they never said. So, it obviously didn't make any sense. Yet this person truly believes that that is real, even though it never happened. So you'll be completely confused when faced with these types of false perceptions of reality. And certainly you'll try to question them as their behavior now makes no sense. But you won't get any sensible answers. There's no ability for these people to see reality as it truly is because they're so self absorbed and they actually believe their own reality because that's their inside. Like their inner world is what they're projecting out. So to them, it's real as anything. In fact, you'll probably get anger back or defensiveness, and they'll try to attack you instead if you oppose their perceptions. However, unrealistic their perceptions might be, they're going to turn it around and get angry at you and make you the person who's wrong. What I find interesting is that people who enable toxic people then also support the same false reality. They really want to believe the reality of the toxic person, even if true reality is in opposition to this. So, why is this? Enablers always get some kind of emotional payoff to keep believing the lies of the toxic person or this false reality of the toxic person. Again, the toxic person doesn't necessarily think that those are lies. They may or may not, but most of the time they believe it regardless. So maybe the enabler um, is a parent and it's their child who's toxic and they don't want to believe the child has done terrible things or that anything could be wrong with their child. Maybe it's their spouse and they just can't let go of that happy family ideal. So these people continue to lie to themselves and deny reality. The enabler, is not, let's say, a toxic person. by themselves. So the enabler knows better, but they'll go along with this um, for various reasons. Another reason could be just that the enabler grew up in a family where everything was swept under the carpet. And we don't talk about these things and we don't sort these things out. We just sweep it under the carpet and keep going. And some people just conduct themselves that way and just nothing ever gets resolved. The toxic person loves being enabled because they now feel validated that their version of reality is true. Despite it being a construct of their inner projections, they now have another person or possibly several people that are now, let's say, validating and reinforcing that, their perception is real, even if it's not. It's interesting that enablers of toxic people cannot face reality just as much as the toxic person. Dr. Sherry Campbell says toxic families are allergic to the truth, so much so that they would rather support an obvious lie or protect an overtly bad person over supporting the scapegoat. Certainly, I think toxic people couldn't get away with all their bad behavior if they didn't have people enabling them. If everyone held toxic people accountable, they wouldn't be able to continue hurting people because nobody would stick around. Everybody would just leave. But enablers help the dysfunctional and toxic person. Enablers put their head in the sand, sweep things under the carpet, pretend it wasn't that bad, and make excuses and so forth. And enablers, come um into this from all different situations. So for instance, it could be enabling someone who has a cluster B personality disorder and allowing them not to get help. It could be enabling someone who has unmedicated mental illness and not encouraging them to get medicated and get therapy and just enabling that person, or someone who's an alcoholic, enabling an alcoholic who rages and gets drunk, or a drug addict who is getting high. um Enablers are the people around that dysfunctional person who are sort of making everything okay and fixing things. It's very, very much hand in hand with codependency. So you'll see like this overlap of, both of these things. If you try to bring up true reality to an enabler, though, you'll likely be met with a lot of anger and defensiveness. I don't think enablers necessarily get angry in the same exact way as the toxic person, but you'll still get anger because, the enabler has some sort of psychological or emotional payoff that if they keep believing that there's no problem and this toxic person's okay, there's something that they're getting from that, whether it's satisfaction, whether it's, happiness, whatever it might be. There's a deep seated reason why the enabler is denying reality. There has to be a psychological payoff involved, which makes them subconsciously think denial of reality is more beneficial than admitting to what's real. Some people would just rather live in a fantasy world than accept the truth because it's easier, less messy, less emotions, less to deal with. It's certainly a lot easier to live in a fantasy world instead of bringing the truth out into the light. It's basically the easy way out when you enable someone. You're taking the easy way out if you're enabling, and you're letting the toxic person take the easy way out as well. Coupled with the fact that often the enabler is afraid of the toxic person, it makes sense. Often, toxic people become enraged at the thought of anyone opposing them. So the enabler might be staying small to avoid conflict. However, it's like a bully who just continues to bully. Staying quiet doesn't solve the problem. They'll just continue to hurt more people. Putting the truth out on the table means a lot of emotional work for everyone involved. It isn't easy, but it's the more honest way to handle things. It's more authentic, more ethical, and more beneficial to all in the long run. It's even the best thing for the toxic person. But some enablers can't handle discussing emotions and navigating something like this. Their emotional intelligence might be low, they may be emotionally immature and underdeveloped. And again, taking the easy way out is just easier. Despite the fact that they may be adults, they manage emotions like a child if they continue to enable someone. In this way, enablers are very similar to toxic people who also seem to manage emotions from an immature perspective. That being said, I think if any of us has been involved with a toxic person in any way, we have likely been in the enabler role, right? If you're getting out of a toxic relationship and you're healing and you were dating someone who was toxic, you were an enabler for a period of time. So, it makes sense that if you loved someone, you wanted to believe the best in people you care about, right? It's hard to actually see them for who they are if they're toxic. You want to believe this person I love uh, is worth all of this. Seeing reality from an objective viewpoint is nearly impossible for anyone. We cannot be completely objective. We all see things subjectively, whether we are toxic or not. That being said, when you have more self awareness and a more authentic and honest approach to viewing reality, you'll be less inclined to enable toxic people. You'll be more governed by a more realistic view, let's say, if you cultivate self awareness and a strong observation of other people's behavior. I hope this gave you a better understanding into how powerful denial can be. When you notice that people are not actually seeing reality, but their own version of reality, you're seeing denial in action. Enablers believe what they want to believe, and toxic people also believe whatever they want to believe because they are not seeing the world the same way. Enablers may be too hopeful and they want to believe the fantasy. Please like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. And do check out my free resources below if you haven't yet.